In the American continent, there are all kinds of people and all kinds of intentions that each one of them has. In 2015, when we decided to travel all over America in an old station wagon, we had thousands of doubts about the people. And since we couldn't find any information about it on blogs, YouTube, or anywhere else, we decided to go out into the world and share it on our YouTube channel. We set out with fears and uncertainties, and the human factor on the trip was not always what we expected, and sometimes we were dealt unexpected turns. Today we are going to share our experience traveling through South America, and what are, in our opinion, the least recommended countries to travel through South America. It's May of 2015. I start the station wagon for the last time at home and for the first time on a trip. The first kilometers of the trip begin to happen, and our big dream of making a long trip is materializing. I examine Sin and the route, and in the midst of the madness of emotions that I am living inside, I try to imagine what will become of us, what our trip will be like, what unexpected things we will face, how will we feel living so long in a station wagon? And also one that was going around a lot in my head, which was, what will the people out there be like? A fear I had from the moment we decided to travel in a vehicle is that the vehicle would be a barrier limiting my contact with people. I felt that if we traveled as backpackers, being more exposed, I would have more opportunities to connect. Did I really believe it? I felt that was going to be a barrier. And then there was the issue of contact with strangers. I'm from a town in Entre Rios, where life is more relaxed. But since I arrived in Buenos Aires, I had started to feel how I was slowly closing myself off to contact with unknown people. And I had doubts about how we were going to handle going places where I didn't know anyone and didn't know how I was going to feel. Finally, and to round off the combo of questions spinning in my head, I had certain doubts about some of the countries we were going to pass through on our journey. You know when you start to share the desire to go on a long trip like the one we were going to do? The vast majority of people tell you that you're crazy. How are you going to do it? Where are you going to get the money? To be careful, and they fill you with warnings about the places. But fortunately, when we started the trip, we had a list of family and friends we wanted to visit on our tour of Argentina. And for that reason, our first stop was 30 kilometers from where we left in Luján. Then we went to where we bought the station wagon, to the little town where I was born, to Córdoba, where we had several relatives and we were visiting and touring with them. And suddenly, in less than a month of travel, the list of relatives and friends had run out. And where are we going to sleep now? If you don't know our story or didn't watch the previous video, let me tell you that we left with very little money and had to generate income along the way in order to continue. We couldn't afford accommodation, so we had no choice but to sleep on the street. We're talking about 2015, when there were no traveler apps marking safe spots to sleep, which are super common today. But back then, it was decided by pure intuition. And one of the first nights sleeping on the street, we had an unpleasant surprise. Many of the relatives who said goodbye to us, as well as people we met along the way, filled us with warnings about San Miguel de Tucumán, that we should try to avoid it, that it had become dangerous, that we better keep going. We were novice travelers, so we took these warnings seriously. So we decided to stop a little before the capital, in Simoca. There was a gas station on the side of the road. We parked, set up our protective tarp, and slept. Or did we try to sleep? Suddenly, in the early morning, we woke up to super loud music coming from a car that had parked right next to us. From inside, I couldn't move the canvas and I didn't want to get down either. But looking ahead, I could see that everything was completely dark and the parking lot was empty. There was only this car stuck to ours, with someone getting in and out of the car with excessively loud music. And we couldn't see anything from inside. The situation was strange and we didn't know what to do, so we called the police. And by the time they arrived, this car sped off and left. I never knew what was going on, but the experience was not pleasant, and that's how we started sleeping on the street. Arriving in Salta, we were experiencing mechanical problems with the station wagon and in Cafayate, the Argentine north. We ended up sleeping on any street because the van didn't want to start and we had no idea what was wrong with it. One of those days, a man appears who introduces himself as José and says that he saw us parked there for several days and asked us if we had any problems. We told him about the start of the van and he said, "Don't worry, come to my house and I'll help you solve it." At that moment, it seemed strange to us that a person would appear out of nowhere and invite us to his house to fix our mechanical problem. On one hand, there was the distrust we could feel because we didn't know him, but also the distrust he could feel towards us because we were outsiders and he didn't know us. But we had been trying solutions for several days that solved nothing, so we looked at each other without sin, decided to accept, and went to his house. José would kick off this journey to start feeling that we were not alone. Not only did he solve the problem with the truck, which was related to the carburetor, but he also introduced us to his family. We stayed at his house for several days, and he even allowed us to record him, showing us the process of disassembling and cleaning the carburetor, in case we encountered a similar situation in the future.
This one works with the fuel going up and down, blocking the fuel intake.
It feels this and...
From this happens, yes, ready, like the...
toilet. I didn't know anything about mechanics, but from there I felt powerful with the knowledge acquired. And every time something happened to the station wagon, later on, I would disassemble the carburetor and clean it to see if it would fix it. Never, of all the times I took out the carburetor to clean it, I never solved anything by cleaning the carburetor. But at least it was useful for when they ask me, "Well, you must know a lot about mechanics to go on such a long trip with this truck." I tell them I know basic car maintenance like changing tires and cleaning the carburetor, but nothing beyond what José invited me to do. At home, we were also going through little towns where people wanted to share with us. What they did, show us their art. The thread from below, the little hole, artisans who showed us how they made their crafts, so that we can replicate it and thus we can continue financing our.
You grab a lighter and burn it.
We started to see that people were not indifferent to our passage through their city or their town, that they were interested in what we were doing. And we always found them willing to lend a hand, to have a moment of chat and to share experiences. They even cut our hair in their homes. They also began filling us with warnings, advice, and calls for caution. In Bolivia, Argentinians are disliked, people are unfriendly, it's unsafe, and caution is needed. And in addition to all these warnings, we entered Bolivia. And our engine breaks down, we were stranded on the Cuesta del Sillar, a stretch of incredible climbs that marks the transition between the low tropical areas and the high areas of the Bolivian Andes. Financing our trip with the sale of handicrafts, it was impossible for us to face the repair of an engine. But we met the Cochabamba Antique Car Club, and with the help of Carlos, the former president of the club, they made a collection among all the members. They took out the engine, ordered parts. They put us in contact with Fico Avila, one of the most recognized actors in Bolivia, who invited us to accompany him and his cast to other cities to see his show. We also went to his birthday and parties at his house, met a lot of great people. Plus, they lent us a fully furnished house for us to stay while they fixed the van. They invited us to ritual ceremonies, took us to see places, and when we discovered that the engine was cracked, a company gave us the repair for free, saying, "We want to support you, long live dreams." Tremendous. We left Cochabamba completely renewed. Bolivia marked us in many ways, but now we were going to Peru, and again we started to hear a lot of warnings. Be careful, they are not like here, it's more dangerous there. And there we began to realize that people spoke well of their place, but filled us with warnings about the next place. Be it a town, city, or country, I never fully understood the reason why this happens, but it happens. Same. We entered Peru, and what happened? We met Dudu, the mayor of a coastal town, who took us around the area. At the market, he introduced us to people, we went to his restaurant, and he cooked a crab soup, delicious for us. We met Geraldo and his girlfriend who hosted us, helped us with mechanical problems, when not, and even baked us Argentine pastries. We met Mauricio and Angela, who provided us with fundamental support when, due to exhaustion from mechanical problems, we wanted to end the trip. We met more vintage car clubs that invited us to ride with them, and we even received invitations to television and radio interviews. Everything seemed to indicate that nothing was as serious as they warned us. And again we heard the phrase, "Be careful with Ecuador. The people are not like here." And we quickly had an encounter with the security forces. We started selling in a square where we were doing really well, but they came to warn us that it was not allowed. Mind you, they were always super friendly, understanding that we lived off this, and even suggesting possible places where we could continue our sale. First encounter in Ecuador. Things started off well, but they were about to get better. In Quito, an artist saw us selling in the square and gave us a tremendous painting painted by herself for us to resell and make money. We ended up selling it to a fire station, with whom we shared really nice chats and mate afternoons. And that was also an aspect that made me feel great when traveling. People were interested in our culture and wanted to know it, and just like we tried new foods, they also dared to cultural exchange.
It's bitter. It's bitter, isn't it? But do not feel bad either.
But they also treated us so well that we even got encouraged to do something that we had been wanting and planning to do for a while. But we couldn't find a place to do it. It was a complete renovation of the interior of the station wagon. We met Peter and Jeline, who invited us to stay at their hotel. They introduced us to their friends, and it was at one of their houses that we did the renovation. We ate barbecues, tried new desserts, went for walks around the area, and even had a delicious fernet. What a beautiful Ecuador! It was a madness of beautiful people, incredible places, exotic foods, and unexpected experiences. But we were just halfway around the world, and a new change was coming. We are 30 kilometers from the Colombian border. Suddenly, everything fell silent, and the fat lady said,
I feel a little nervous about entering a new country.
"Why, my love?"
Everything's new. We already knew Ecuador more or less.
But before entering, we didn't know it. We didn't know Peru.
I was really scared.
And we had such a good time. During the recording, I may look calm as I accompany Sim, but inside I felt a certain uncertainty about what we were going to find. In Colombia, people have lived through terrible times, like in the rest of South America, but here worse things had happened. And the guerrillas and paramilitary groups were still present and mobilizing in some areas. In fact, they told us stories that involved relatives and friends. And we even visited areas that had experienced very difficult times, like the beautiful little town of Silvia in Coca. Logically, I imagined that people could be more reluctant, distant, and distrustful. I didn't feel so comfortable having to look for a place to sleep on the street.
The gentleman was really nice. He told me that the exchange rate for the dollar was 2,750. And to the police, you only present this, the driver's license and the car document. You don't have to give them money for anything.
At least the person who attended us at the border was very nice. And with expectation, anxiety, and a certain tickle in the stomach, we began to travel through Colombia. Of course, we had to keep selling, so we went to sell in Pasto. And the television came to interview us about the adventure in this little junker, as they affectionately called Stancy. The first night we slept in Pasto, in front of a supermarket. Nothing happened. We were calm. Well, let's see how this continues. We kept moving, and a truck driver stopped us on the road to take a picture and recommend places that were coming up next. In fact, we went to his house afterwards. In the workshops, people were super cool. Traveling is worth it.
Traveling is worth it?
And suddenly we were selling, and they brought us the famous ones.
This is a typical arepa from Popayan. It features pink sauce, tomato sauce, potato, and a piece of meat. Excellent.
They took us to parties, to birthdays. They invited us to coffee farms. We were on the radio, on television again, and we came across very intelligent people. And they even did things like this. There's the number. I wish you the best of luck. Let's see what happens. Of course, the mechanical problems couldn't be missing.
If they had chosen a Fiat 600, which is lighter.
Strength. Day 3 of brakes. Andy removing the pump for repair.
And up to here, they also gave us a hand.
How much does the network cost for you? The gift will come from Befrenos at no charge to you. It's our small contribution.
Thank you very much.
Have a very good trip.
But the last big challenge in South America was coming, which was to raise the money to cross to Panama. Between Colombia and Panama, the route is interrupted, and the only way to get there is to send the van in a container on a ship. But that has a cost and it's not cheap. We set a goal. If we sold 300 squares, we would gather the remaining money we needed for the crossing. We met David and Luzma, who hosted us in their house, and we transformed it into a workshop. They started to contact friends and family. People were joining the goal. They helped us share it on social media. More people came to be part of the dream. We were getting closer to the goal. And in the midst of all that, it was Sim's birthday. And from a bakery, they even gave us a basket full of baked bread. We reached the goal. We celebrated Sim's birthday. And we understood that the fear we had at the start of this journey about people had gradually been fading away. And that now allowed us to enjoy the journey even more. That the world is full of wonderful people ready to lend a hand or a warm welcome. And that out of affection or concern that nothing bad happens to us, many people wanted to advise us with good intention, reflecting their own fears onto us. But if we had paid too much attention to listening to those foreign fears, we would surely have missed out on living incredible experiences like the ones we lived, which positively marked us for life. On the trip, people were not always as we expected. They were much more, making us unexpected pledges, surprising us with their kindness and hospitality, even without knowing us. The least recommended countries to visit in South America are those where indifference reigns and the lack of empathy, where people don't care about foreigners, nor are they interested in you having a good impression of the country, where you feel alone and insecure and you have no one to turn to. We've traveled all over South America, and we're eager to visit the ones we haven't been to yet. But what we do know is that none of the countries we've been to fit with the previous list. It's impressive how they received us, how they treated us, and how they are. It's impressive, but that's how they are. And for that reason, traveling is worth it. Of course, then we would have to face Central America and new challenges, where the few resources, the gangs and crime are present, adding a new level of tension to the journey and with the people.